I'm working every day, but I do have to take time sometimes just to stop and sit and listen to the birds and the chimes and the wind and see the hay moving in the field. It's wonderful.
Meet Georgia Haverty. I'm calling her the Apple Whisperer. On a 400-acre spread in Giles County, she grows apples, lots of apples, 17 varieties at last count.
I took all the large trees out. It was a commercial orchard, so the trees were very large and overgrown and they weren't taken care of.
So she downsized, replacing the old growth with about 2,300 dwarf apple trees. Easier for the U-pickers to get at.
They don't have to climb ladders. They don't have to get in weeds. It's just a very easy stroll into the orchard and they bring their apples out.
There's no telling how long apples have been growing in this part of northwestern Virginia, but based on old photos, at least since the Depression. Georgia's parents relocated here in the 70s, and there are still traces of the old days, like these ink stamps that packers used to mark the huge wooden crates. Back then, everything was done by hand, and woe to those who talked to the women on the line. Georgia retired from the federal government in 2011 and says returning to the family farm was more work than she expected.
Keeping up with the weeding and keeping up with just keeping everything groomed. All the roofs needed, they needed new tin. Everything needed new tin, and we had some very faded, rusty, sort of pale green, and I saw that red and thought, that's it, that's what I want.
But don't be fooled by the shiny roofs and the power lines that snake across the property. It's still quite rustic and wooded, and thanks to Georgia's persistence, now also very historic.
Anything on this, all the land and any building that is 1966 or older is designated historic.
And the sign at the entrance says as much, pointing the way to a smokehouse built in the 1880s. And an antique chimney that stands guard over a new pergola. The Havertys are so proud of the place, they like to share their little slice of heaven. So Doe Creek Farm, thanks to Georgia's daughter, can be rented out for weddings.
They don't want to do apples, and I don't want to coordinate weddings, so.
But she's still eager to show off what's been done to the place, like converting the packing house upstairs into a spacious dining room and transforming the cellar into a cozy bar.
I had over 100 old apple pallets that we used to use in the commercial orchard and made walls here and then lit them up and have pallets on the ceiling lit up.
Easily a place to toast their success. But the celebration might be short-lived because Doe Creek Farm, in all its glory, sits directly in the path of the proposed Mountain Valley Pipeline.
Where they're putting the pipe, if anything goes wrong, if it blows up, all of these historic buildings will blow up too.
Doe Creek Farm isn't the only historic property that could be affected by the pipeline. Nearby Newport, Virginia is also in the sights of developers. And at a time when natural gas is the go-to fuel for new power plants coming online, there's economic pressure for state and federal officials to greenlight projects like the MVP. And with little apparent regard for the impact on watersheds or historic properties just a stone's throw from the gentle runs of creeks and rivers.
It's like they've played connect the dots all the way through these historic districts, and they really don't care.
There's even a formula for what might happen if the pipeline does blow up. The company behind the project has designated Doe Creek Farm a high-consequence area, meaning they acknowledge a lot of people would die in a worst-case scenario. But Georgia Haverty believes you can't live each day expecting the worst, because there are apples waiting. In the words of Robert Frost, 10,000 fruit to touch, cherish in hand, lift down, and not let fall. And she's ready, here among the birds and the bones of so many yesterdays.
Every day I'll get up and I'll look outside and I'll say it's a beautiful day and nothing's going to happen to me today. That's how I deal with it.